Hey everyone. Can you imagine that leadership is not always what you think it is? We often imagine leaders as these flawless, polished icons who have all the answers. But here's the real deal. Leadership is messy, it's raw, and it's profoundly human. And that's exactly what we're diving into on Leadership Plus with Dr. G. Dr. G brings a fresh and unique perspective. She's not just about theories and buzzwords. She gets to the core of leading with courage and heart. So whether you're navigating challenges, building your team, or refining your vision, this is your space to grow and thrive as a leader. Now let's jump in with your host, Dr. Shernette Grant.
Hello everyone. I am Dr. Shernette Grant and I want to welcome you to another episode of Leadership Plus with Dr. G. This is the podcast where we keep it real about what it takes to lead, grow, and inspire others to be their absolute best. And I am so delighted I get to be your host. Of course, I would be remiss if I did not remind you to go back and check out all the previous episodes. Leadership Plus with Dr. G is available on all of your favorite streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Castbox, iHeart, and I encourage you to like, subscribe, and most importantly, share, because I know that there is someone out there that you know who could benefit from these insights. And of course, I encourage you to leave your comments, and share your thoughts. So today we're going to get into a topic that does not get nearly enough attention in leadership. While we do talk about one aspect of this topic quite a bit, we don't emphasize the dynamics between these two words that I'm about to share with you: influence and authority. The balance that is important in effective leadership. Why both matters, and why getting it wrong can be a leadership disaster. We talk a lot about leadership and influence. We talk about leaders and the need for leaders to be able to influence the action of others. And we talk about the fact that simply because you are in a position of authority, it does not mean that you have influence, and it also does not mean that you are an effective leader because you have that authority. I get it. This is an idea that's everywhere. We talk about it all the time. But let's just be fair, right? Influence alone is really not enough. Influence about the power to make real decisions can lead to frustrations. It can lead to confusion and even chaos. And on the other hand, authority without influence, well, that's just dictatorship. Let's just be real. And trust me, no one thrives under that kind of leadership. Think about it. Have you ever worked with somebody who had all the influence in the world, but they had no real authority? They were the person that everybody went to for advice. They had great ideas, but at the end of the day, they weren't the one who was calling the shots. They had no ability to actually implement change. And what happens in those situations? People start to look at them instead of the actual leader, and that can create conflict and division, especially if the leader does not know or is not equipped to navigate that scenario. Or even worse, these individuals with all this influence, sometimes they just get all burnt out because they're doing the emotional labor of leadership without the official power to back it up. Now let's flip the script. You probably already also know somebody, or you might be that leader who have all the authority. You have the title, you have the decision-making power, but you have no influence. These individuals, they bark orders, but the truth is nobody really respects them. They can make decisions, but they struggle to get true buy-in because people, they just do what they do because they have to, not because they really want to. And what happens in that situation? Resentment, disengagement, and sometimes even quiet rebellion. So here's the truth. While influence is important, leadership isn't just about influence. And it isn't just about authority either. It really is about striking that perfect balance between the two. If you are one who relies too much on authority, trust me, you will alienate people. And if you lean too much on influence without any real power to act, you're going to frustrate not only yourself, but you're also going to frustrate the people around you. So today we're going to unpack why both of those are really important and what happens when they are out of balance, and how you as a leader can develop to become the kind of leader that people not only trust, but will also follow. So in this conversation today, whether you are a business owner, whether you're leading a business, whether you're leading a nonprofit, a school, a church, no matter what it is, because at some point you're going to have to face these two. And when you do, I want to ask the question, do you really have the power to make real change? And if you do, are you using it in a way that will actually inspire people to follow you? So I'll tell you what, go grab your coffee, grab your tea, or whatever it is that fuels your greatness, and let's dive in. Let's get something crystal clear. Let's talk about the difference between authority and influence, because the reason that so many leaders struggle isn't that they lack one or the other, is that they don't understand how the two work together. Authority is the power that comes usually with your position. It's formal. It comes with your title. It is structured, and it's usually given to you by either the organization, the institution, or the governing body, right, under which you exist. It allows you to make decisions. It allows you to set policy, figure out how to use resources. It allows you to hold people accountable. Think about it: a CEO, a principal, executive director, a military officer, a government official, whatever that is. Their authority isn't dependent on whether people like them. It just is. It exists because the system within which they operate assigns them that authority by virtue of that role or by virtue of that position. Influence, on the other hand, isn't assigned, it's earned. Influence is about your ability to inspire, persuade, and move people to action. It really is about building relationships. It's about trust. It's about credibility. You don't need a title to have influence. You just need people who believe in you and value what you bring to the table. Think about history. Dr. Martin Luther King, Oprah Winfrey. None of these people started with formal authority. What they had was a message, a mission, the ability to connect with people in a way that moved them to action. That's influence. Some leaders, on the flip side, rely too much on authority. I'm the boss. You should listen to me because my title dictates that. But they haven't built the trust or relationships that are needed to gain real buy-in. And that's a recipe for disengagement. People might follow simply because they have no choice, because they have to, but they won't be motivated and they will not go above and beyond. They're going to walk in and they're going to do the bare minimum, and again, in most situations, very disgruntled while they're doing it. On the other side, like we mentioned, people who have incredible influence, they might not even have the authority, but they are those people who can get individuals to buy into whatever it is they are selling. But here's the problem. They get stuck in a cycle of frustration because while they have the ability to get people all excited, they can shape ideas, they motivate, they inspire. When it comes to actually making decisions and seeing change happen, they hit a brick wall because they don't have the authority. Imagine that you work at a company where there's a super charismatic, well-respected employee who has no official title. We talked about this when we talked about the teacher and we talked about the Pied Piper, right? Many podcast episodes ago. Everyone turns to these people for advice. They're the go-to for solving problem, the ones people trust when things get tough. But at the end of the day, they don't have the power to approve a budget. They don't have the power to change a policy. They don't have the power to make a final decision that they've gotten everybody all excited about. Their ideas might be great, but without authority, they're constantly running into roadblocks. They can influence, but the truth is, they perhaps can't execute. Now, there might be a person who is the boss. They have the title, they have the salary, they have the decision-making power. But guess what? No one listens to them. They're out of touch. They don't make time to connect with their team. And when they speak, it's really just words because no one is truly engaged. They have the authority, but they don't have the trust, the respect, or the influence needed to lead effectively. Which one of these people do you think is more effective? Some of you might say the influential employee or the influential leader. But here's the kicker. Neither one is truly effective on their own because influence without authority leads to powerlessness. And authority without influence can lead to disengagement. So the sweet spot is where influence and authority come together. It's when leaders use their authority to support their influence and use their influence to strengthen their authority. Think of the best leaders you've ever worked with. They had the power to make decisions, but they also took the time to connect, inspire, and rally around a vision, rally around their people, get them motivated and inspired. That's the sweet spot. That's where real leadership happens. And here's the truth. None of us is born into the right balance. Some of us, we are naturally more influential, while others step into leadership without formal authority. But the best leaders, they actively develop both. So if you're listening today and thinking, I have the authority, but I don't feel like people are following me. Or perhaps you're thinking, I have the influence, but I can't make any real decisions. This episode is definitely for you. Definitely for you. We're going to break down a little bit more in detail exactly what happens when you lean too much in any one direction and how you can fix that. All right. So now that we understand that there's a difference between authority and influence, let's talk about what happens when you have too much influence without enough authority. Because while influence is super powerful, it is a superpower of leadership on its own. It can set you up for failure if you don't have the formal power to back it up. When you're influential, it feels like leadership, right? It's great. It feels amazing. People come to you for guidance. They listen to your advice. You're in the conversations that matter. And it's easy to assume that people trust you because you're in control. But influence without decision-making power is really an illusion of control. You can get people all excited. They want to share ideas. They want to come to you. They want to rally around a cause. But then you don't have the power to act and follow through on those ideas. Imagine influence. So let's flip the script. We just talked about the dangers of having influence without authority, being the go-to person without the power to make real decisions. But what about the opposite? What happens when someone has all the authority but no influence? Let me tell you, this is just as dangerous, if not worse. Because leaders who rely solely on authority to command respect are walking a thin line between compliance and rebellion. And here's why. Authority comes from a title. position, a system that says this person is in charge. But having authority doesn't mean people actually want to follow you. It just means they have to. And there's a huge difference between people following because they believe in you versus people following because they're obligated to do so. If you've ever worked under a leader who lacked influence, you know exactly what I mean. They send out directives, hold meetings, demand respect, but no one's truly invested. Their team does the bare minimum. They avoid direct conversations, and when that leader leaves the room, people pretty much are rolling their eyes, venting in frustrations, and in some cases just outright ignoring their instructions. This happens all the time. Leaders assume their authority is enough. They think that because they have the power to enforce rules, people will follow. But leadership isn't about power, it's about connections. People do not want to follow out of obligation. They don't want to follow because they want to be loyal. When people follow because they have to, not because they want to, you've already lost. Compliance is not commitment. It's just people doing the bare minimum to keep their jobs. If you want engagement, you also need influence. And in situations like this, it causes high turnover, low morale, because a leader without influence creates a culture where people feel unheard, undervalued. And what happens in these environments? People leave. High turnover, low morale, disengagement. A paycheck is not enough to keep good people. People stay where they feel like they matter. When leaders use authority without influence, people don't trust them. And when people don't trust leadership, they resist change, even when the change is necessary. In situations like this, when leaders create environments that are built on authoritarian, they create a culture where people are afraid to speak up. Instead, employees do not contribute ideas and innovation. They just kind of stay silent. Why? Because they don't feel safe challenging leadership. All right. So if you're in a leadership role right now and you realize, oh my, I have authority, but I'm not really influencing my team. First of all, you're not alone. That's one. This is something a lot of leaders struggle with. But the good news is you can do something about it. You can start by being very intentional and deliberate about building trust with your team first and foremost, and then lead. Trust is the foundation of influence. Before you ask people to follow you, ask yourself, do they trust me? Because without trust, you're just a person with a title. Here's one very simple tactic you can use. Start having real conversations with your team. Listen more than you speak. Ask for input before making decisions. Show them that their voices matter. Communicate the why, not just the what. People resist orders, but they buy into vision. If you want people to follow you, don't just tell them what to do. Help them understand why it matters and why what we do matters. Here's a simple tactic. The next time you roll out a decision, don't just send an email with instructions, for God's sake. Hold a meeting where you can explain the bigger picture. Show them how their work connects to the organization's success. It's a simple tactic that you can use. Don't hide behind the emails. Another tactic you can use is to spend time with your employees. Walk around. Have informal check-ins. Let people see you as a person, not just a boss. Leaders who hide behind their titles, which means they're hiding behind their desks and their doors with the big sign on there that says, "I am the president," usually struggle to connect with their teams. Influence is built on your presence, it's built on you being visible, and it's built on you being really authentic when you're working with your people. Give your folks ownership and autonomy. Very important. Instead of dictating every move, start asking questions. What do you think? Give people an opportunity to contribute their ideas and then act on them. Remember, because if you're asking for their ideas and you never act on them, eventually you will also lose their trust. That's how you build influence. The best way to influence people is to empower them, give them control over their work, and let them take ownership of decisions. It's important for you to strike the right balance and how to align influence with authority for maximum impact. Now that we've looked at both extremes, right? Having influence without authority and having authority without influence, it is a sweet spot that matters, because the real magic of leadership happens when you know how to balance both. That is where the best leaders are going to operate, not just relying on their titles and not just depending on their charisma, but using both authority and influence together to create a powerful, sustainable leadership style. Remember, it's like an equation. Authority, which is your position, plus influence, which is the trust, equates to maximum impact. You need authority to make decisions. You need authority to execute plans. You need authority to create structure. You need influence to gain buy-in. You need influence to inspire action. And you need influence to build strong teams. If you have one without the other, your leadership will always be limited. Always be limited. The best CEOs, coaches, political leaders don't just issue commands. They motivate, they inspire, they rally people towards a vision, and they use their authority, because when they can build the influence through their actions, right? They use their authority to execute. It's important for you to lead with vision, not with directives. One of the biggest mistakes leaders make is that they focus too much on the tasks and not enough on the vision, telling people what to do, when to do it, how to do it. But influencing people to believe in the mission creates momentum and commitment. Let your people be the one to tell you how to do it, because now they buy in and they believe in the mission of the organization. They believe in the work. Instead of saying we need to increase sales by 20% this quarter, right? Say to your folks, we have an opportunity to make a difference. We have an opportunity to take this company to the next level. If we can just increase our impact, we will be able to create more opportunities for our team and serve our customers in such a more meaningful way. You see the difference? One of them is just an order that is purely transactional. The other is a mission that ties in the influence you will have to get people rallied around a common goal, a common mission, a common vision, and get people to want to be a part of the journey. It's important for you to use your authority wisely. Use it to remove the barriers, right? Since you have all that power, use it for good. Help it to create a path for your team to work well. Use it to remove the barriers. Don't just use your authority when it comes to rule enforcement. If you have authority, your job isn't to control, it's to use your authority to empower people. Strong leaders don't just set policies, they remove obstacles so that their team can thrive. A great leader doesn't just say to their folks, here's what we need to do. They also say, what's stopping you from getting to that end game? What's stopping you from succeeding? And how can I help? How might I be able to help? That's how you gain influence, using your authority wisely. Ask your team. Be very deliberate. Be very specific. What challenges are you facing? then use the authority and the power that you have to fix the broken processes, to remove the barriers, to provide better resources, and to create systems that help people do their best work. And most importantly, be very consistent in building trust. Very consistent. If you want people to follow you, not just because they have to, but because they believe in you, you got to be reliable, you got to be fair, and you got to be consistent in your actions. You must be reliable, fair, and consistent. And you do so by setting clear expectations and sticking to them. You do so by following through on your promises. You do so by being the same, this is important, being the same leader you are in private that you are in public. Because some of us love to show out for the public, and then behind the doors, we are monsters. People don't trust inconsistent leaders. And authority may give you the power to lead, but it is consistency that's going to earn you the right to lead. Just remember that. Authority gives you the power to lead because it is just by virtue of the position in the role, but it's being consistent and supportive that's going to give you that right to lead. Balance your decision making with collaboration. Leaders who make all the decisions, you're going to kill motivation in your people. Leaders who empower others to make decisions will create strong, high-performing team. Instead of saying, here's your goal, right? You go ahead and work collaboratively to set those goals. Here's our goal. How do you think we should get there? What ideas do you have to solve this challenge, right? By involving them in the decision-making process, you're not giving up your authority. You're strengthening your influence, and you are gaining their commitment. So it's important for you to know when and how to use your authority and when and how to use your influence. Great leadership is knowing which tools to use at the right time. It's important for you as a leader to know that influence without authority can create problems, and authority without influence is even worse. So, I want to challenge you this week to take an honest look at your leadership today. Ask yourself, do I lean too much on authority and not enough on influence? Or do I influence but need to step up and claim authority and use it for all the right reasons and use it in the right way? And I want you to write down for yourself this week, what is one step that you are going to take to create a better balance between the two? Because at the end of the day, great leaders don't just hold power, they use it wisely, and they also share it generously, by the way, and they earn the trust of those that they lead. So that's all I have for today. If this resonated with you, I want to hear from you. DM me, tag me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook. Leave a comment on any of those podcast platforms, and let me know. One, if you lean more towards authority or influence, but most importantly, how are you going to be working to create better balance between the two? And listen, if you love this episode, please share it with somebody who needs to hear this. Whether they're an aspiring leader, a current executive, or someone who's just navigating leadership challenges, this message can certainly help. So until next time, just remember, true leadership isn't really about choosing between authority and influence. It's about knowing when and how to really use both. Stay bold, stay unorthodox, and keep leading with impact. Ciao.